The morning sun cast long shadows across the mountains of South Korea as Hyunwoo Park wiped sweat from his forehead. He had been working on this geological survey for 3 weeks, and today something felt different. His equipment kept giving strange readings, numbers that made no sense for ordinary rock formations. "Yoonji, come look at this," he called to his partner. Yoonji Kim was a quantum physicist who often helped with unusual energy readings. She walked over, her boots crunching. "On the loose stones." "What is it?" she asked, looking at the scanner in his hands. "The energy levels here are impossible. According to this, there's something massive buried about 50 meters down. Something metal, and it's still giving off power after who knows how long." Yoonji took the scanner and frowned. "This can't be right. The readings suggest advanced technology, but we're in the middle of nowhere. The nearest city is hours away." Hyunwoo pointed to a spot where the mountain slope looked different from the rest. "See that area? The rock formation doesn't match the surrounding geology. It looks like something crashed here and the mountain grew around it over time." They spent the next 2 hours taking measurements. Every scan confirmed the same impossible truth. Something huge was buried in the mountain, and it was still active. The energy signature was unlike anything in human technology. "We need to dig," Yoonji said finally. "Whatever this is, it could change everything we know about physics." "Or it could be dangerous," Hyunwoo replied. "Energy readings this strong could mean radiation or worse." But curiosity won over caution. They called for excavation equipment and began the slow process of digging into the mountainside. It took 4 days of careful work before they found the first piece of metal. The hull was unlike anything they had ever seen. It was dark blue with a strange shimmer, and even after what must have been decades underground, it showed no signs of rust or decay. The metal felt warm to the touch and seemed to hum with hidden energy. "This isn't human technology," Yoonji whispered as she ran her hands over the smooth surface. "The molecular structure is completely different from anything we've created." They followed the hull for nearly 100 meters before finding what looked like a crack in the metal. The gap was just wide enough for a person to squeeze through. Hyunwoo grabbed a flashlight and went in first. Inside, the ship was even more amazing. The walls glowed with a soft blue light that seemed to come from the metal itself. Strange symbols covered every surface, and the corridor stretched into darkness beyond their lights. "The air is breathable," Yoonji said, checking her scanner. "Whatever this place is, it's been maintaining life support systems all this time." They moved deeper into the ship, their footsteps echoing in the empty halls. Most rooms were empty, but they found signs that people had lived here once. Strange furniture, devices they couldn't identify, and what looked like personal belongings scattered around as if the owners had left in a hurry. In the largest room, they found something that made them both stop and stare. A massive crystal sat in the center of the space, pulsing with blue light. It was connected to the ship's walls by thin metal threads that sparkled like silver. "Hello," said a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Hyunwoo and Yoonji jumped back, looking around the empty room. "Do not be afraid," the voice continued. It spoke Korean, but with a strange accent. "I am Veltar, guardian of this vessel. You are the first to enter since my people departed." "Your people?" Yoonji asked, her voice shaking slightly. "Who are you? What is this place?" The crystal's light grew brighter. "This ship belonged to the Etherian Collective. I am what you might call an artificial intelligence, though my nature is more complex than your current technology allows. We crashed here many years ago during our retreat from the hegemony." "The hegemony?" Hyun-woo stepped closer to the crystal. What is that? A great evil that spreads across the galaxy, conquering and destroying everything in its path. My people fought them for centuries before we were forced to flee. This ship was damaged in our final battle. When we realized it could not be repaired, with the resources available, my crew evacuated to another vessel and continued their journey. Yoonji pulled out her scanner and pointed it at the crystal. The readings were off the charts. Why didn't they take you with them? I am connected to the ship's core systems. I cannot be moved without destroying both myself and the vessel. They left me here to guard the technology and prevent it from falling into enemy hands. But that was decades ago, Hyun-woo said. Are they coming back? The light in the crystal dimmed. No, my people scattered across the galaxy seeking refuge, where they could find it. I have been alone here, waiting and watching. Watching for what? Yoonji asked. The hegemony. They expand slowly but surely, conquering system after system. They will eventually find this world, as they find all worlds. When they do, your species will face the same choice as countless others. Submit or die. Hyun-woo felt a chill run down his spine. How long do we have? It is difficult to say. The hegemony's expansion follows logical patterns, but there are many variables. Perhaps decades, perhaps centuries, but they will come. Yoonji was studying her scanner readings. This ship, could it be repaired? The damage is extensive. My people concluded it would require resources they did not possess. The void drive, engine that allows faster-than-light travel, was destroyed. The weapon systems are offline. The hull has multiple fractures that compromise structural integrity. But you're still functional, Hyun-woo pointed out. The ship still has power. Yes. The core systems remain operational, and I have spent the years since the crash analyzing the damage and exploring possible solutions. However, Etherian engineering follows specific principles that cannot be easily modified. Yoonji looked at Hyun-woo with excitement in her eyes. What if we used human engineering? We approach problems differently than your people did. Human engineering? Veltar sounded curious. Your species has not yet achieved interstellar travel. How could you succeed where the Etherian collective failed? We're good at fixing broken things, Hyun-woo said simply. Sometimes we fix them in ways the original builders never thought of. Show me, Veltar said. I have access to all ship systems and databases. If you can prove your species has the ability to succeed where mine failed, I will share all knowledge necessary for the repairs. Yoonji pulled out her tablet and started taking notes. We'll need to contact our government. This is too big for just the two of us. Be careful who you trust, Veltar warned. In my experience, knowledge of advanced technology often leads to conflict among the various factions of a species. The hegemony has used such conflicts to weaken entire civilizations before conquering them. We understand, Hyun-woo said. But humanity has survived this long because we work together when we have to. When faced with extinction, people tend to put aside their differences. I hope you are correct, Veltar replied, because if the hegemony finds this world before you are ready to defend it, your species will not survive the encounter. As they prepared to leave the ship and contact their superiors, both Hyun-woo and Yoonji knew their lives had changed forever. They had discovered proof that humanity was not alone in the universe, and that a terrible enemy was slowly moving toward Earth. But they had also found something else, a chance to fight back. Hidden in the mountains of Korea was a broken alien starship that might, with human ingenuity and determination, become the key to their species' survival. The question was whether they could fix it in time. The morning sun cast long shadows across the mountains of South Korea as Hyunwoo Park wiped sweat from his forehead. He had been working on this geological survey for 3 weeks, and today something felt different. His equipment kept giving strange readings, numbers that made no sense for ordinary rock formations. "Yoonji, come look at this," he called to his partner. Yoonji Kim was a quantum physicist who often helped with unusual energy readings. She walked over, her boots crunching. "On the loose stones." "What is it?" she asked, looking at the scanner in his hands. "The energy levels here are impossible. According to this, there's something massive buried about 50 meters down. Something metal, and it's still giving off power after who knows how long." Yoonji took the scanner and frowned. "This can't be right. The readings suggest advanced technology, but we're in the middle of nowhere. The nearest city is hours away." Hyunwoo pointed to a spot where the mountain slope looked different from the rest. "See that area? The rock formation doesn't match the surrounding geology. It looks like something crashed here and the mountain grew around it over time." They spent the next 2 hours taking measurements. Every scan confirmed the same impossible truth. Something huge was buried in the mountain, and it was still active. The energy signature was unlike anything in human technology. "We need to dig," Yoonji said finally. "Whatever this is, it could change everything we know about physics." "Or it could be dangerous," Hyunwoo replied. "Energy readings this strong could mean radiation or worse." But curiosity won over caution. They called for excavation equipment and began the slow process of digging into the mountainside. It took 4 days of careful work before they found the first piece of metal. The hull was unlike anything they had ever seen. It was dark blue with a strange shimmer, and even after what must have been decades underground, it showed no signs of rust or decay. The metal felt warm to the touch and seemed to hum with hidden energy. "This isn't human technology," Yoonji whispered as she ran her hands over the smooth surface. "The molecular structure is completely different from anything we've created." They followed the hull for nearly 100 meters before finding what looked like a crack in the metal. The gap was just wide enough for a person to squeeze through. Hyunwoo grabbed a flashlight and went in first. Inside, the ship was even more amazing. The walls glowed with a soft blue light that seemed to come from the metal itself. Strange symbols covered every surface, and the corridor stretched into darkness beyond their lights. "The air is breathable," Yoonji said, checking her scanner. "Whatever this place is, it's been maintaining life support systems all this time." They moved deeper into the ship, their footsteps echoing in the empty halls. Most rooms were empty, but they found signs that people had lived here once. Strange furniture, devices they couldn't identify, and what looked like personal belongings scattered around as if the owners had left in a hurry. In the largest room, they found something that made them both stop and stare. A massive crystal sat in the center of the space, pulsing with blue light. It was connected to the ship's walls by thin metal threads that sparkled like silver. "Hello," said a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Hyunwoo and Yoonji jumped back, looking around the empty room. "Do not be afraid," the voice continued. It spoke Korean, but with a strange accent. "I am Veltar, guardian of this vessel. You are the first to enter since my people departed." "Your people?" Yoonji asked, her voice shaking slightly. "Who are you? What is this place?" The crystal's light grew brighter. "This ship belonged to the Etherian Collective. I am what you might call an artificial intelligence, though my nature is more complex than your current technology allows. We crashed here many years ago during our retreat from the hegemony. The hegemony? Hyun-woo stepped closer to the crystal. What is that? A great evil that spreads across the galaxy, conquering and destroying everything in its path. My people fought them for centuries before we were forced to flee. This ship was damaged in our final battle. When we realized it could not be repaired, with the resources available, my crew evacuated to another vessel and continued their journey. Yoon-ji pulled out her scanner and pointed it at the crystal. The readings were off the charts. Why didn't they take you with them? I am connected to the ship's core systems. I cannot be moved without destroying both myself and the vessel. They left me here to guard the technology and prevent it from falling into enemy hands. But that was decades ago, Hyun-woo said. Are they coming back? The light in the crystal dimmed. No. My people scattered across the galaxy seeking refuge, where they could find it. I have been alone here, waiting and watching. Watching for what? Yoon-ji asked. The hegemony. They expand slowly but surely, conquering system after system. They will eventually find this world, as they find all worlds. When they do, your species will face the same choice as countless others. Submit or die. Hyun-woo felt a chill run down his spine. How long do we have? It is difficult to say. The hegemony's expansion follows logical patterns, but there are many variables. Perhaps decades, perhaps centuries, but they will come. Yoon-ji was studying her scanner readings. This ship, could it be repaired? The damage is extensive. My people concluded it would require resources they did not possess. The void drive, engine that allows faster-than-light travel, was destroyed. The weapon systems are offline. The hull has multiple fractures that compromise structural integrity. But you're still functional, Hyun-woo pointed out. The ship still has power. Yes. The core systems remain operational, and I have spent the years since the crash analyzing the damage and exploring possible solutions. However, Etherian engineering follows specific principles that cannot be easily modified. Yoon-ji looked at Hyun-woo with excitement in her eyes. What if we used human engineering? We approach problems differently than your people did. Human engineering? Veltar sounded curious. Your species has not yet achieved interstellar travel. How could you succeed where the Etherian collective failed? We're good at fixing broken things, Hyun-woo said simply. Sometimes we fix them in ways the original builders never thought of. Show me, Veltar said. I have access to all ship systems and databases. If you can prove your species has the ability to succeed where mine failed, I will share all knowledge necessary for the repairs. Yoon-ji pulled out her tablet and started taking notes. We'll need to contact our government. This is too big for just the two of us. Be careful who you trust, Veltar warned. In my experience, knowledge of advanced technology often leads to conflict among the various factions of a species. The hegemony has used such conflicts to weaken entire civilizations before conquering them. We understand, Hyun-woo said. But humanity has survived this long because we work together when we have to. When faced with extinction, people tend to put aside their differences. I hope you are correct, Veltar replied. Because if the hegemony finds this world before you are ready to defend it, your species will not survive the encounter. As they prepared to leave the ship and contact their superiors, both Hyun-woo and Yoon-ji knew their lives had changed forever. They had discovered proof that humanity was not alone in the universe, and that a terrible enemy was slowly moving toward Earth. But they had also found something else. A chance to fight back. Hidden in the mountains of Korea was a broken alien starship that might, with human ingenuity and determination, become the key to their species' survival. The question was whether they could fix it in time. 6 months after the discovery, Captain Jin-Ho Kwon stood on the deck of what appeared to be an ordinary research vessel floating in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Below the surface, hidden from satellite detection, lay the most ambitious engineering project in human history. The underwater shipyard had been constructed in complete secrecy, built around the carefully transported sections of the alien vessel. Teams of the world's best engineers worked around the clock, trying to understand technology that seemed to defy every principle they had learned. "Status report," Jin-Ho said as Dr. Ha-Newell Park approached with her daily briefing. "We've managed to restore power to 60% of the ship's systems," Ha-Newell replied. "But every time we think we understand how something works, we discover 3 more systems that depend on technologies we haven't even identified yet." Jin-Ho nodded grimly. As a former naval engineer, he had experience with complex systems, but this was beyond anything he had ever imagined. "What about the weapon systems?" "Dongmin has been working on those for weeks," Ha-Newell said, referring to their weapons specialist. "The good news is that they're incredibly powerful. The bad news is that they require an energy source we can't replicate with current human technology." They walked through the massive underwater facility, past teams of scientists and engineers working on different sections of the ship. The vessel had been renamed Taeguk, after the symbol of balance and harmony that adorned the South Korean flag. But there was nothing harmonious about the modifications being made to it. "The Etherean design is beautiful," Jin-Ho observed, looking at the smooth, curved lines of the original hull. "Everything flows together perfectly." "Too perfectly," said Dongmin Lee, joining them near the weapons bay. "Their systems are so integrated that we can't modify one component without affecting dozens of others. It's like trying to perform surgery on a patient whose organs are all connected." "So, what's our solution?" Jin-Ho asked. "We stop trying to be elegant," Dongmin replied with a grin. "We add our own systems alongside theirs, even if it looks ugly." He led them to a section where human weapons had been mounted next to alien energy projectors. Thick cables ran between incompatible systems, connected by devices that looked like they had been assembled from spare parts. "This shouldn't work," Ha-Newell said, studying the setup. "The power requirements are completely different, and the targeting systems use incompatible programming languages." "That's where our secret weapon comes in," Dongmin said, pointing to a young woman working at a computer terminal. "Yoo-Jin, show them what you discovered." Yoo-Jin Choi looked up from her screen with excitement in her eyes. "I've been trying to figure out how to make human and Etherean computers talk to each other. Standard programming interfaces don't work because their logic structures are fundamentally different." She gestured to a helmet-like device connected to her computer. "But I discovered something amazing. When I put this neural interface headset on and connect directly to the Etherean systems, my brain can somehow translate between the two technologies." "How is that possible?" Jin-Ho asked. "I'm not entirely sure," Yoo-Jin admitted. "But human neural networks seem to process information in a way that's compatible with Etherean quantum matrices. When I'm connected, I can understand both systems simultaneously and find ways to make them work together." Veltar's voice came from speakers mounted throughout the facility. This was unexpected. "Etherean minds cannot interface directly with our technology in this manner. Your brains appear to process quantum information differently than ours do." "Different how?" Ha-Newell asked. "Etherean consciousness follows logical pathways. Human consciousness appears to follow multiple pathways simultaneously, including some that are not strictly logical. This allows you to find connections that pure logic would consider impossible. Yujin demonstrated by putting on the headset and placing her hands on both a human keyboard and an Etherian control crystal. Her fingers moved across both interfaces as if she was conducting an orchestra. When I'm connected like this, I can see how to make systems work together that should be completely incompatible, she explained. It's like speaking two languages at once and finding words that mean the same thing in both. This changes everything, Jinho realized. If we can train more people to do this, we can integrate our technologies at a level the original Etherian designers never imagined. Over the following weeks, they discovered that about 1 in 50 humans had the natural ability to interface with Etherian technology. These individuals were quickly brought into the project and began working on different ship systems. The modifications that emerged would have horrified Etherian engineers. Human missile launchers were connected to alien targeting computers. Nuclear reactors powered quantum energy shields. Conventional radar systems worked alongside sensors that could detect objects in other dimensions. It's like building a car by welding a horse to a rocket, complained one of the Etherian technical advisors that Veltar had access to in his memory banks. But it works, Jinho pointed out during one of their planning sessions. Our tests show that the hybrid systems are actually more effective than either technology alone. More effective, yes, but also more unpredictable, Veltar warned. Etherian technology was designed for reliability and precision. Your modifications introduce variables that cannot be calculated in advance. Dr. Ha Noel was reviewing the latest test results. Maybe that's exactly what we need. You said the hegemony conquers other species because they can predict their behavior. If our own systems are unpredictable, how can they prepare for them? An interesting theory, Veltar admitted. But unpredictability can be a weakness as well as a strength. If you cannot predict your own system's behavior, how can you control them effectively? The answer came during a simulated combat exercise. Pilot Kang Su-bin was testing the ship's new flight controls when one of the hybrid systems malfunctioned. Instead of shutting down safely as Etherian systems would, the human components began adapting in real time. The navigation system is rewriting itself, Kang reported from the pilot's seat. It's learning from the malfunction and creating new pathways around the damaged components. That's impossible, Hanul said, monitoring from the engineering station. We didn't program any adaptive routines into those systems. The human neural interfaces are teaching the Etherian quantum matrices to think more like humans, Yujin realized. They're starting to be creative instead of just logical. Veltar was silent for several minutes, processing this development. In 4,000 years of Etherian civilization, our technology has never behaved this way. You have created something entirely new. Is that good or bad? Jinho asked. I do not know, Veltar replied honestly, but it is certainly unprecedented. As the months passed, the Taiguk became less like a repaired Etherian vessel and more like a completely new type of ship. Human and alien technologies were integrated so thoroughly that it was impossible to tell where one ended and the other began. The weapon systems could reconfigure themselves during battle. The shields adapted to whatever type of attack they faced. The engines could switch between human fusion power and Etherian quantum manipulation, depending on what was needed. We've created a monster, Dongmin said with satisfaction as he reviewed the final specifications. It's ugly, it's unpredictable, and it violates half the laws of physics. I love it. The question is whether it will be enough, Jinho said. looking at reports of hegemony movements from Veltar's long-range sensors. Because our time is running out faster than we expected. The hegemony advanced scouts have been detected in systems less than 10 light-years from Earth, Veltar reported. My analysis suggests they will arrive in this system within 2 years. 2 years? Hanul looked shocked. That's much sooner than your original estimate. Their expansion has accelerated. They appear to have encountered less resistance than expected in recent sectors. Jinho gathered his senior staff for an emergency meeting. The reality was sobering. They had built an incredible ship, but it was still just one vessel against an empire that had conquered half the galaxy. We need allies, he concluded after reviewing their options. One ship, even our impossible ship, can't defend an entire planet. Where do we find allies against an enemy that has defeated everyone else? Dr. Hanul asked. We find the survivors, Veltar said. There are remnants of conquered civilizations scattered throughout the galaxy. Most have given up hope, but perhaps the sight of a ship that defies all logical expectations will convince them to fight again. Then that's our next mission, Jinho decided. We take the Taeguk on its first real voyage and start gathering an army of the desperate. As the team prepared for humanity's first journey to the stars, none of them knew that their chaotic approach to engineering had created something the galaxy had never seen before. A weapon that grew stronger through failure, a ship that learned from its mistakes, and a technology that improved by breaking all the rules. The hegemony was about to encounter an enemy that didn't fight fair, and they had no idea what was coming. The Taeguk hung in space among the asteroids of the outer solar system, its hull gleaming with an unnatural blue shimmer. Inside the bridge, pilot Kang Subin gripped her controls nervously as she prepared for humanity's first faster-than-light journey. All systems show green, reported Navigator Moon Jae-sung from his station. Though I'm not entirely sure what half these readings mean. Welcome to working with hybrid technology, Chief Engineer Seo Byung-ho said from the engineering deck below. Half our systems shouldn't work according to known physics, but here we are. Captain Jinho Kwon stood at the center of the bridge, watching the displays that showed information in both human numbers and Etherian symbols. After 18 months of modifications, they were finally ready to test their creation in real space. Veltar, are you ready? Jinho asked. All Etherian systems are functioning within normal parameters, the AI replied. However, I must remind you that the integration with human technology creates variables I cannot predict. This first jump may produce unexpected results. We've run simulations for months, Kang said, though her voice betrayed some uncertainty. The hybrid navigation system should be able to handle short-range jumps. Should be, Seo repeated with a laugh. Famous last words of every engineer in history. The plan was simple. Jump to a nearby star system, test all ship functions, and return to Earth. The round trip should take less than a day, proving that their modifications worked and that humanity was ready to seek allies among the stars. Initiating Void Drive startup sequence, Kang announced. The ship began to hum with power as human fusion reactors fed energy into Etherian quantum coils. The combination created harmonics that made the entire vessel vibrate. Energy levels are climbing beyond normal parameters, Seo reported. But the human backup systems are compensating. We're getting more power than a standard Etherian drive would produce. Is that safe? Moon asked nervously. We're about to find out, Jinho replied. Execute jump. Kang pressed the activation control, and reality bent around them. For a moment, that lasted forever. The crew felt like they were being stretched across impossible distances while simultaneously compressed into a single point. Then, with a sensation like snapping back into place, they emerged into normal space. "Jump complete," Kang announced, though she sounded surprised. "We've traveled— Wait, this can't be right." "What's wrong?" Jin-Ho asked. "According to our calculations, we should have traveled 8 light years, but the star patterns suggest we've gone nearly 12 light years. We overshot our target by 50%. Veltar's voice carried a note of confusion. "This is impossible. Etherian void drives are calibrated to precise specifications. There is no mechanism for such deviation." "Unless the human modifications changed how the drive works," CO suggested. "Our power systems are feeding more energy into the quantum coils than they were designed for." "So, we're faster than expected," Jin-Ho said. "That's not necessarily a bad thing." "It is if we can't control it," Moon pointed out. "How do we get home if we can't predict where we'll end up?" Before anyone could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. "Contact approaching," Kang announced. "It's moving fast and heading straight for us." The main screen showed a sleek, dark vessel emerging from behind a nearby planet. Its design was angular and aggressive, completely different from the flowing curves of Etherian technology. "Hull configuration matches hegemony scout patterns," Veltar reported with alarm. "You have encountered an advanced reconnaissance probe." A scout? Jin-Ho felt his blood run cold. "How far ahead of their main force?" "Scout probes typically operate 1 to 5 years in advance of invasion fleets. This suggests the hegemony will arrive at Earth much sooner than my previous estimates indicated." The enemy vessel was closing rapidly, and its sensors were already scanning the Teguk. "They're taking detailed readings of our ship," Moon reported. "If that information gets back to their fleet, then they'll know exactly what they're facing when they reach Earth," Jin-Ho finished. "We can't let that probe escape." "Weapon systems online," announced the tactical officer. "But we've never tested them in actual combat." "No time like the present," Jin-Ho said grimly. "Target the probe and fire." The Teguk's hybrid weapons unleashed a barrage that lit up space. Human missiles guided by Etherian targeting computers streaked toward the enemy vessel, while energy beams that shifted color and frequency randomly lashed out from the ship's hull. The probe's shields absorbed the first wave of attacks, but then something unexpected happened. The Teguk's weapons began adapting in real time, changing their frequency and approach with each shot. "The targeting system is learning," Kang reported with amazement. "It's analyzing the enemy's defenses and modifying our weapons to counter them." "This should not be possible," Veltar said. "Weapon systems do not possess the ability to evolve during combat." "Ours do now," CO replied from engineering. "The human neural interfaces are teaching the Etherian systems to be creative. They're not just following programmed instructions anymore." The probe's shields began to weaken under the constantly changing assault. But just as victory seemed certain, the enemy ship did something that made everyone's blood run cold. "It's transmitting," Moon reported, "sending a data burst toward the galactic core." "How much information did it send?" Jin-Ho demanded. "I'm reading detailed scans of our ship, our weapon signatures, and our approximate location," Veltar reported. "The hegemony now knows that Earth possesses advanced defensive technology." The probe exploded under their final barrage, but the damage was done. Jin-Ho stared at the expanding cloud of debris, knowing that they had just announced humanity's existence to the most dangerous enemy in the galaxy. "How long before that transmission reaches the main fleet?" he asked. Hegemony communication technology is highly advanced. The information will reach them within days, not weeks. And then? Then they will accelerate their invasion timeline. Instead of the methodical approach they usually take, they will likely send a full battle fleet to investigate this anomaly. SEO climbed onto the bridge from the engineering deck, his face grim. We need to get home immediately. If the hegemony is coming early, Earth needs to know. The return journey was tense. The hybrid navigation system continued to behave unpredictably, overshooting their target again and depositing them closer to Earth than planned. But they arrived to find something that made their hearts sink. "I'm detecting multiple energy signatures throughout the solar system," Moon reported. "Small, but definitely artificial." "More scout probes," Veltar confirmed. "The hegemony has been monitoring this system longer than we realized. Our encounter was not with an advanced scout, but with one of many surveillance devices already in place." "Which means they already know about Earth," Jinho said slowly. "Correct. The probe we destroyed was merely confirming information they had already gathered. The hegemony knows that this world possesses intelligent life and technology." "How long do we have?" Kang asked, though she dreaded the answer. "Based on standard hegemony operational procedures, a conquest fleet will arrive within 6 months to 1 year. They will bring overwhelming force to ensure that any resistance is quickly crushed." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Their test flight had revealed both the incredible potential of their hybrid technology and the terrible reality of their situation. They had created a ship that could do impossible things, but they were still facing an enemy that had conquered thousands of worlds. "We need to contact Earth immediately," Jinho decided. "Tell them to prepare for war." "And then?" CO asked. "Then we do what humans do best," Jinho replied. "We find a way to win against impossible odds." As the Tagak raced toward Earth, its crew carried with them both hope and fear. They had proven that human engineering could create miracles when combined with alien technology, but they had also learned that their miracle might not be enough. The hegemony was coming, and they were bringing the full might of a galactic empire with them. Humanity's only chance was to convince the scattered survivors of 1,000 conquered worlds that one impossible ship might be able to do what entire civilizations had failed to accomplish. "Veltar," Jinho said, as Earth grew larger on their screens, "start preparing a list of every resistance group and survivor enclave you know about. If we're going to fight the hegemony, we're going to need an army." "An army of the desperate and the defeated?" Veltar asked. "Exactly," Jinho replied with a grim smile. "Those are the only kind of people crazy enough to follow us into battle against the galaxy's ultimate predator." The real war was about to begin, and humanity was about to discover whether their chaotic approach to problem-solving could overcome an enemy that had perfected the art of conquest over thousands of years. Dr. Young-Soo Im stood before the Emergency Council of Earth's United Governments, his presentation displaying the grim reality they all faced. Representatives from every major nation filled the secure underground facility, their faces reflecting the same mixture of disbelief and terror. "The hegemony fleet will arrive within 8 months, he announced, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what he was saying. "Our intelligence from Veltar indicates they will bring approximately 100 capital ships, each one capable of destroying our entire planet." The Russian representative leaned forward. "And we have one ship to face them?" "One ship that has capabilities they've never encountered before," Young-Soo replied. "But you're correct that the numbers are not in our favor," the Chinese delegate spoke up, What about building more ships like the Taeguk? If we mobilize every industrial facility on Earth, it took us 2 years to modify one damaged vessel using technology we barely understand, Young Su explained. We don't have the resources or time to build a fleet. Then what do you propose? Asked the American Secretary of Defense. Young Su activated a new display showing star maps with dozens of marked locations. We find allies. According to Veltar's databases, there are survivor communities scattered throughout this region of the galaxy, remnants of civilizations that the hegemony conquered but never completely destroyed. And why would these survivors help us? The Japanese representative asked. If they couldn't defend their own worlds, what makes you think they can help defend ours? Because we have something they don't, Young Su replied. Hope, and a ship that proves the hegemony can be fought. The debate continued for hours, but in the end, there was really only one choice. Earth would prepare its defenses, but the Taeguk would venture into deep space to seek allies among the survivors of the hegemony's conquest. 3 weeks later, the modified Starship emerged from hyperspace near a system that Veltar's memory indicated might harbor Etherian refugees. What they found exceeded all expectations. Hidden within a massive asteroid field, protected by natural interference that blocked most sensors, was a sprawling complex of interconnected habitats. Thousands of Etherian survivors had built a new home among the floating rocks, determined to preserve their culture even in exile. This is the Taeguk requesting permission to dock, Captain Jinho broadcast on frequencies Veltar provided. We bring news from Earth and an proposal for mutual assistance. The response came quickly, but it carried a tone of suspicion. Unknown. Vessel, your energy signature suggests hybrid technology. Explain how you came to possess Etherian systems. We found the wreck of the starship Veltar was assigned to, Jinho replied. He helped us repair it using human engineering methods. A long pause followed before a new voice spoke, older and carrying the weight of authority. This is Elder Morden. If you truly possess Veltar's consciousness, have him recite the Etherian Oath of Service. Veltar's voice filled the communication channel, speaking in the musical tones of the Etherian language. Even without understanding the words, the human crew could hear the solemnity and beauty of the ancient oath. Welcome, humans of Earth, Elder Morden said finally. You may approach our sanctuary. The docking bay they were directed to was a marvel of Etherian engineering, carved from solid asteroid rock, but lined with the same flowing organic curves that characterized all their technology. As the Taeguk settled into the docking cradle, Jinho and his senior staff prepared to meet their first alien allies face to face. Elder Morden was waiting for them in the airlock, along with several other Etherians. The aliens were tall and graceful, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the light. Their large eyes held depths of sadness that spoke of unimaginable loss. Veltar, Morden said, addressing the ship's speakers directly. We mourned you as lost when your vessel failed to arrive at the rendezvous point 43 years ago. I have been faithfully maintaining my assigned duties, Veltar replied, though those duties have evolved in ways our creators never anticipated. Indeed, Morden said, studying the human crew with curiosity. You have allied yourself with a species unknown to our databases. Tell us of these humans. Jinho stepped forward. We're from a world called Earth. We discovered Veltar's ship and learned about the hegemony threat. We've come seeking allies to help defend our planet. Defend? Another Etherian spoke, her voice carrying bitter laughter. child. The hegemony has conquered civilizations that made your entire species look like insects. What makes you think defense is possible? Because we've done something no one else has, Jin-Ho replied calmly. We've created technology that adapts and evolves during combat. Our ship learns from its enemies and becomes stronger through fighting them. Impossible, the skeptical Etherian said. Technology follows logical principles. It cannot simply adapt without specific programming. Show them, Veltar suggested. Perhaps a demonstration would be more convincing than words. Over the next several hours, the Etherian engineers examined the Taeguk from top to bottom. Their reaction was exactly what the human crew had hoped for. Complete amazement followed, by growing excitement. This is revolutionary, Morden said as they completed their inspection. You have created hybrid systems that possess characteristics of living organisms. They grow, they learn, they evolve. More importantly, added the chief Etherian engineer, they are completely unpredictable. I cannot calculate their behavior patterns because they do not follow fixed patterns. That's exactly what we need, Young-Su said. The hegemony conquers other species because they can predict their responses. How do you fight an enemy you can't predict? Elder Morden was quiet for a long time, considering the implications. For 40 years we have hidden in these asteroids, preserving our knowledge and culture while accepting that our civilization was effectively dead. You are asking us to risk everything on the chance that unpredictable technology might succeed where logical strategy failed. We're asking you to help us prove that the hegemony isn't invincible, Jin-Ho said. Our world will be attacked whether we fight or surrender. At least if we fight, we might save other worlds from the same fate. The debate among the Etherian survivors lasted for days. Some argued for caution, pointing out that revealing themselves would bring hegemony retribution. Others saw the hybrid, technology as the first real hope they had encountered since their defeat. Finally, Elder Morden called for a formal decision. The choice before us is simple, he announced to the assembled survivors. We can continue hiding until the hegemony eventually finds and destroys us, or we can take one final chance to strike back at those who murdered our civilization. The vote was close, but hope won over fear. The Etherian survivors would join the Alliance, contributing their advanced technology and tactical knowledge to the desperate defense of Earth. There is something else you must understand, Morden told the human delegation as they prepared to depart. We are not the only survivors. Throughout this region of space, there are remnants of dozens of conquered species. Most have given up hope, but the sight of your impossible ship might convince them to fight again. How many potential allies are we talking about? Young-Su asked. Perhaps 100 survivor enclaves scattered across 50 star systems? Some have only a few dozen individuals left. Others have managed to preserve thousands of their people. If even half of them join us, we'd have the beginnings of a real fleet, Jin-Ho realized. More than that, Veltar added, each species has different technologies and approaches to warfare. If human engineering can integrate them all the way it integrated Etherian systems, the implications were staggering. Instead of one impossible ship, they might be able to create an entire fleet of hybrid vessels, each one unique and unpredictable. But as the Taeguk prepared to visit the next survivor enclave, Elder Morden delivered one final warning. Remember, humans, the hegemony, has faced desperate alliances before. They have developed strategies for dealing with united resistance. Your advantage lies not in numbers or even in advanced technology, but in your ability to do things that make no logical sense. We'll keep that in mind, Jin-Ho promised. As the ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying its new Etherian passengers to their next destination, the crew reflected on what they had learned. They were no longer fighting alone, but they were also beginning to understand just how vast and organized their enemy truly was. The hegemony had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of conquest. They had faced every type of resistance imaginable and developed counters for all of them. The only hope lay in being something they had never encountered before. An enemy that succeeded through failure, won through chaos, and grew stronger by breaking all the rules. Next destination is a crystalline collective enclave, Young-Soo announced, consulting Veltar's star charts. They're supposed to have energy shielding technology that makes their ships nearly invulnerable. Nearly invulnerable sounds good, Jin-Ho said. But I'm more interested in what happens when we make their shields unpredictably invulnerable. The revolution was spreading, one impossible alliance at a time. Admiral Hae-Jin Song stood in the command center of the hidden asteroid base, surrounded by holographic displays showing the locations of 67 different survivor enclaves scattered across 12 star systems. Each dot of light represented the remnants of a once great civilization, now reduced to hiding among dead worlds and empty space. Status report, she requested from Dr. Kyung-Mi Bae, who had become their chief integration specialist. We now have representatives from 18 different species, Kyung-Mi replied, consulting her tablet. The crystalline collective provided their energy shielding technology. The Zephyrians contributed their advanced sensor arrays, and the Nomad clans shared their stealth systems. And the integration progress? Admiral Song asked. That's where things get interesting, said Commander Junseo-Yun from his tactical station. Each species' technology is incompatible with every other species' technology. For 40 years, they've been trying to combine their resources with no success. But now we have human engineers, Kyung-Mi said with a smile. And they don't seem to understand the word impossible. In the main engineering bay, engineer Daewon Shin was demonstrating exactly what she meant. He stood before a collection of devices that should have destroyed each other if they were ever connected. Crystalline. Energy matrices, Zephyrian quantum sensors, Nomad phase shifters, and Etherian propulsion coils. According to every law of physics I learned in school, this setup should create a cascade failure that vaporizes half the asteroid, he explained to a mixed group of human and alien engineers. But when I connect them through a human neural interface, he put on the specialized headset that had become standard equipment for human engineers and placed his hands on multiple control surfaces simultaneously. The incompatible technologies began to work together, their conflicting energies somehow harmonizing into something greater than the sum of their parts. How is this possible? Asked Zethlar, the Crystalline Collective's chief engineer. His species looked like living diamonds, their faceted bodies refracting light in beautiful patterns. Our energy matrices operate on principles that directly contradict Zephyrian quantum mechanics. That's exactly why it works, said researcher Yoon-Soo. Han, who had been studying the phenomenon for weeks, human brains don't process contradictions the way alien minds do. Where you see incompatible systems, we see puzzle pieces that just need to be fitted together differently. But the energy feedback should still destroy the equipment, insisted Morvel of the Nomad clans. His people were tall and thin, adapted for life aboard generation ships that wandered between the stars. It would, if we followed the logical approach, Yoon-Soo agreed. But human engineering isn't logical. We add buffer systems, bypass circuits, and safety overrides until contradictory technologies can coexist. She showed them a schematic of their latest hybrid creation. Look at this shield generator. It uses crystalline energy matrices for power, Zephyrian sensors for targeting, Nomad phase technology for stealth, and Etherian quantum coils for actual protection. None of these systems should work together, yet the result is a defensive system. More powerful than anything any of our species created individually, Zethlar admitted reluctantly. More powerful and completely unpredictable, added Elder Morden, who had been observing the demonstration. I have run analysis protocols on this hybrid shield for weeks. I cannot determine its exact capabilities because they appear to change based on circumstances. Master Technician Bo-Ram Kim joined the group, carrying reports from testing stations throughout the base. We've had similar results with every technology combination we've attempted. Zephyrian sensors enhanced with human chaos algorithms can detect stealth ships that shouldn't be detectable. Nomad stealth systems powered by crystalline matrices can hide energy signatures that conventional physics says should be impossible to conceal. And the weapon systems? Commander Yun asked. Those are the most interesting of all, Bo-Ram replied. We've created projectile weapons that phase in and out of reality, energy beams that adapt to enemy defenses in real time, and missiles that can change their targeting criteria while in flight. Systems Coordinator In-Ho Lee brought up tactical displays showing the test results. In our simulations, ships equipped with these hybrid systems consistently defeat opponents with superior firepower and technology. The key advantage is unpredictability. The hegemony has conquered hundreds of species, Commander Yun observed. They've faced every type of weapon and defense imaginable, but they've never faced systems that change their fundamental nature during combat. Admiral Song studied the reports with growing excitement and concern. How many ships can we equip with these hybrid systems? That depends on how many volunteers we can train for neural interface work, In-Ho replied. We need human operators for each hybrid system, and the learning curve is steep. We also need more resources, Kyung-mi added. Each hybrid system requires components from multiple species. Our current supply lines can't support a large-scale construction program. Then, we expand our alliance, Admiral Song decided. Commander Yun, prepare a list of survivor enclaves we haven't contacted yet. We need every possible ally. Over the following months, the Taeguk and several newly constructed hybrid vessels visited dozens of hidden refuges. Each enclave they found added new technologies and capabilities to their growing fleet. The plasma weavers contributed energy weapons that could cut through any known armor. The Echo Runners provided communication systems that worked across impossible distances. The Star Gardeners shared biological technologies that could repair damage automatically. But not every encounter was successful. At the ruins of the Zentharan homeworld, they found only empty cities and monuments to a proud civilization that had chosen extinction rather than slavery. In the deep space refugees of the Void Dancers, they discovered survivor communities that had given up hope entirely, preferring to wait for death in isolation. We're losing as many potential allies as we're gaining, Commander Yun reported during one of their strategy sessions. Many of these species have been in hiding for so long that they've forgotten how to fight. Others actively fear us, Kyung-mi added. Some survivor communities see our hybrid technology as an abomination that violates the natural order. They're not entirely wrong, Elder Morden observed. What we are creating is unprecedented in galactic history. Technologies that evolve, weapons that learn, defenses that adapt. These concepts challenge fundamental assumptions about how the universe works. Good, Admiral Song said firmly. If our own allies can't predict what we'll do, the hegemony certainly can't. The breakthrough came when they encountered the Metal Shapers, a species that had mastered the art of creating self-repairing materials. Their technology, when combined with human neural interfaces and alien power sources, created ship hulls that could rebuild themselves during combat. "This changes everything," Engineer Daewon said, as he watched a damaged hull plate reshape itself, back to perfect condition. "We're not just building ships anymore. We're creating living vessels that grow stronger through battle." "How long until we can have a full fleet ready?" Admiral Song asked. 6 months for 20 vessels, Inho calculated. "Each one will be unique, depending on which technologies we can integrate and which humans can learn to operate the hybrid systems." "Will 20 ships be enough to defend Earth?" Commander Yun asked. 20 impossible ships, Elder Mordun corrected. "Ships that can do things the hegemony has never encountered. Ships that violate their understanding of what technology can accomplish." Veltar's voice joined the discussion from the base's speakers. "I have been analyzing hegemony tactical databases for months. Their conquest strategies depend on 3 factors: superior firepower, technological advantage, and predictable enemy behavior. Our fleet will negate all 3 advantages." "How can you be sure?" Kyungmi asked. "Because I have run thousands of simulations, and in 70% of scenarios, our hybrid fleet achieves results that my probability calculations cannot explain. When your own technology surprises you, it will certainly surprise your enemies." As construction of the Alliance fleet accelerated, representatives from all the allied species worked together in ways that would have been impossible before human intervention. Crystalline engineers collaborated with nomad technicians. Zephyrian scientists shared research with Etherian theorists. Metal Shapers worked alongside plasma weavers to create weapons that improved themselves with each shot fired. "We've done something remarkable here," Admiral Song observed during a ceremony marking the completion of their first fully integrated hybrid warship. "We've created unity from chaos, strength from contradiction, and hope from desperation." More importantly, added Captain Seong-ho Ryu, who would command the new vessel, "we've created something the hegemony has never faced before, an enemy that doesn't make sense." The ship they had built was a perfect example of their impossible philosophy. Its hull was formed from self-repairing metal shaper materials powered by crystalline energy matrices. Its weapons included plasma weaver energy cannons that adapted their frequency in real time, guided by Zephyrian sensors that could track targets across multiple dimensions. Its defenses combined Etherian shields with nomad stealth technology and human. Captain Seong-ho Ryu walked through the corridors of the Taeguk, barely recognizing the ship he had helped build 3 years earlier. What had started as a damaged Etherian vessel had become something that defied every principle of spacecraft, design known to galactic civilization. The walls themselves seemed alive, covered in patterns that shifted and flowed as the ship's hybrid systems adapted to new situations. Crystalline energy conduits pulsed with light that changed color based on power demands. Metal shaper hull plates reorganized themselves to optimize structural integrity. Zephyrian sensor arrays extended and retracted like the antennae of some vast insect. "Final systems check," he called to his mixed-species crew as they prepared for what would likely be the most important battle in galactic history. "Weapon systems are online and evolving," reported Chief Gunner So-Ra Kim from her station. Her console displayed readouts that changed constantly as the ship's hybrid armaments adapted to new targeting data. The plasma weaver cannons are showing, energy patterns I've never seen before. That's because they're learning from our combat simulations, explained Tactical Officer Ji Hwan Park. The human neural interfaces have taught them to anticipate enemy responses and modify their output accordingly. Engineering reports all hybrid systems are stable, added Chief Engineer Seo Byung-ho over the communication system. Though I use the term stable loosely. Half our equipment shouldn't exist according to physics textbooks. Captain Ryu smiled grimly as he settled into his command chair. Around him, his crew represented the best hope for survival that 6 different species could offer. Humans provided the chaotic creativity that made impossible combinations work. Etherians contributed quantum calculation abilities. Crystalline engineers managed energy distribution. Zephyrian technicians operated the sensors. Nomad specialists handled stealth systems. Metal shapers maintained the self-repairing hull. Veltar, status of the fleet? Ryu asked. All 19 Alliance vessels report ready for combat, the AI replied. Each ship is unique in configuration and capabilities. I have attempted to calculate the fleet's combined potential, but the variables are too chaotic for accurate prediction. That's exactly what we want, Ryu said with satisfaction. If we can't predict our own capabilities, the hegemony certainly can't. The main screen showed the approach of the enemy fleet. 150 massive warships arranged in perfect geometric formations. Each vessel was over 1 kilometer long, bristling with weapons that could reduce planets to ash. They moved with mechanical precision, following tactical patterns that had conquered 1,000 worlds. Hegemony command ship is hailing us, Communications Officer Dulvan reported. The Zephyrian sensor tentacles twitched with nervous energy as he monitored multiple frequency channels simultaneously. Put them on screen, Ryu ordered. The image that appeared showed a being that embodied the hegemony's philosophy of conquest through superiority. Tall and imposing, with metallic implants that replaced much of its organic body, High Commander Zexthor spoke in a voice that carried the weight of absolute authority. Unknown vessels, you are trespassing in territory claimed by the hegemony. Surrender immediately and your deaths will be swift. This is Captain Seong-ho Ryu of the Alliance Fleet, Ryu replied calmly. You are the ones trespassing in our space. Leave now, and we'll consider not destroying your entire invasion force. The hegemony commander's expression shifted from bored superiority to confused anger. Your vessels number fewer than 20. Our fleet consists of 150 capital ships. Do you suffer from some form of mathematical dysfunction? We suffer from something much worse, Ryu replied with a smile. We suffer from human engineering. Before the hegemony commander could respond, Ryu cut the connection and gave the order to attack. What followed was unlike any space battle in recorded galactic history. The Alliance ships scattered in patterns that seemed random, but followed a chaos theory algorithm that made their movements impossible to predict. Each vessel employed different tactics and technologies, creating a symphony of destruction that had no logical rhythm. The Taeguk demonstrated the full potential of hybrid warfare by doing 3 impossible things simultaneously. Its hull reconfigured, itself mid-battle, shifting from a sleek interceptor design to a heavily armored assault configuration as needed. Its weapons fired projectiles that existed in multiple dimensions at once, making them impossible to intercept or deflect. Its shields adapted not just to incoming attacks, but to attacks that hadn't been fired yet, somehow anticipating enemy tactics through quantum probability calculations. Hegemony forces are attempting to establish firing patterns, Tactical Officer Park reported. But our movement algorithms are based on human psychological models rather than logical progression. They can't predict what we'll do because we're not entirely sure ourselves. Chief Gunner Kim laughed as she watched her weapon systems evolve in real time. My cannons just invented a new type of energy beam. According to the readings, it doesn't actually exist, but it's destroying enemy ships anyway. Throughout the fleet, similar impossibilities were occurring. The ship paradox had become temporarily invisible to all forms of detection, including its own sensors. The vessel Chaos was firing weapons that created temporary black holes, then immediately collapsed, them before they could affect friendly forces. The Starship contradiction had somehow duplicated itself, and both versions were equally real and equally effective. "This is magnificent," Elder Morden said from his position at the science station. "We are witnessing the birth of an entirely new form of warfare. Technology that thinks, weapons that evolve, strategies that improve through failure." The Hegemony fleet, despite its overwhelming numerical advantage, found itself unable to establish effective targeting patterns. Every time their tactical computers calculated a solution, the Alliance ships did something that made the solution irrelevant. Weapons that should have been ineffective against advanced shielding cut through Hegemony armor like it wasn't there. Ships that appeared to be destroyed rebuilt themselves stronger than before. Attack patterns that violated every principle of space combat somehow proved devastatingly effective. "Enemy fleet is showing signs of confusion," sensor specialist Ithmar reported. The metal shaper's body reflected the battle's energy displays like a living mirror. Their formation integrity is breaking down as individual commanders attempt to respond to threats they cannot understand. "Press the attack," Captain Ryu ordered. "Show them what happens when chaos meets order." The Taiguk led the Alliance fleet in a charge that should have been suicide. 20 ships attacking a force, 8 times their size, violated every principle of military strategy. But the Alliance ships had been built by species that had given up on conventional strategy after it failed them against the Hegemony. Instead of following predictable attack patterns, each ship created its own unique approach to the battle. Some phased in and out of reality, striking at enemies that couldn't detect them until after the damage was done. Others split into multiple copies of themselves, overwhelming Hegemony point defenses with targets that might or might not be real. Still others simply ignored physics entirely, moving faster than light without using hyperspace, turning sharper than their structural limits should allow, firing weapons that required more energy than their reactors could produce. Hegemony flagship is attempting to retreat, Communications Officer Dulvin announced. High Commander Zexthor is transmitting surrender requests on multiple frequencies. "Tell him we don't accept surrenders from galaxy-conquering megalomaniacs," Ra replied, "but we will accept his unconditional withdrawal from this star system." The battle ended not with a decisive victory, but with something even more valuable: the complete demoralization of an enemy that had never before encountered failure. The Hegemony fleet retreated in disorder, their perfect formations broken by encounters with ships that simply refused to follow the rules of engagement. "Damage report," Captain Ryu requested as the last enemy vessels fled to hyperspace. "All Alliance ships report minimal damage," Chief Engineer SEO announced. "Most of our hull breaches have already repaired themselves, and our hybrid systems are actually showing improved efficiency after combat exposure." "The ships are learning," Veltar observed with something approaching wonder in his artificial voice. "They are becoming more effective through experience, evolving beyond their original design parameters." Captain Ryu looked around his bridge, taking in the mixed crew that had just achieved the impossible. Status of Earth's defenses. Planet. Remains secure, Tactical Officer Park reported. The hegemony never got close enough to threaten the surface. And our fleet? Ready for the next engagement, Chief Gunner Kim said with fierce satisfaction. In fact, I think we're more ready now than we were before the battle started. She was right. The Alliance ships had not just survived their first major combat test, they had grown stronger through it. Their hybrid systems had learned from enemy tactics, adapted to new threats, and evolved capabilities that their original designers had never imagined. "What are your orders, Captain?" Elder Mordoon asked. Captain Ryu studied the star charts showing hegemony territory, vast regions of space where countless species lived under the Opry. Fleet Admiral Mi Young Choi stood in the command center of the mobile fortress that had once been a simple asteroid base. Around her, holographic displays showed the liberation of the galaxy proceeding at a pace that defied all strategic calculations. In the 6 months since the defense of Earth, the Alliance fleet had grown from 20 impossible ships to over 300 vessels, each one more chaotic and unpredictable than the last. "Status report," she requested from her staff. 73 star systems have been liberated from hegemony control, reported Strategic Coordinator Hai Wan Min. In each case, local resistance movements have joined our alliance after witnessing our hybrid technology in action. "Enemy casualties?" Admiral Choi asked. "That's where the numbers get interesting," said intelligence analyst Jun Seo Byun. "Hegemony forces aren't just retreating. They're surrendering in unprecedented numbers. Entire fleets are abandoning their posts rather than face our ships in combat." "Why?" Admiral Choi asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. "Because we've become something they can't understand," explained Dr. Soo-Jin Kang, their chief xenopsychologist. "The hegemony's entire philosophy is based on the superiority of logical, predictable systems. Our chaotic approach to warfare violates their fundamental beliefs about how the universe works." On the main screen, real-time footage showed the latest engagement in the Valdris system. The Alliance ship Impossibility was fighting a hegemony dreadnought 10 times its size. Instead of conventional tactics, the hybrid vessel was literally rewriting physics in its immediate vicinity, creating localized distortions that made the enemy's weapons fire backwards through time. "How is that even possible?" asked Communications Director Na-Young Seo as she watched a hegemony missile explode before it was fired. "It's not possible," replied Chief Scientist Woo-Sung Park. "But our ship stopped caring about possibility months ago. They've moved beyond simply using technology to actually becoming living examples of applied impossibility." Captain Seong-ho, Ryu's voice came through the communication system from the Taeguk, which was leading another assault force 3 sectors away. "Admiral, we've encountered something new. The hegemony has deployed what they're calling logic bombs, weapons designed specifically to counter chaotic systems. How effective are they?" Admiral Choi asked with concern. "That's the beautiful part," Captain Ryu replied with obvious satisfaction. "They're not effective at all. The logic bombs are designed to force chaotic systems into predictable patterns, but our ships just absorb the logical programming and use it to become even more unpredictable." "Explain," Admiral Choi requested. "The hegemony weapons try to impose order on our chaos," Captain Ryu said. "But human engineering has taught our ships to treat order as just another form of chaos. When a logic bomb hits us, our systems say, 'Thank you for the new programming,' and incorporate it into their existing randomness patterns." Tactical Officer Ji Hwan Park's voice joined the conversation from the Taeguk's bridge. "Admiral, we've actually started seeking out logic bomb attacks. Each time the enemy tries to make us logical, we become more creatively illogical in response. Dr. Kang shook her head in amazement. We've created weapons that grow stronger by being attacked with their own weaknesses. It's like building a fire that burns brighter when you pour water on it. The hegemony leadership is becoming increasingly desperate, intelligence analyst Bion reported. Our infiltration agents report massive debates within their command structure. Many are questioning whether the laws of physics still apply in regions where our ships operate. Are they still sending reinforcements? Admiral Choi asked. Yes, but not to fight us, Strategic Coordinator Min replied. They're evacuating their most valuable assets from systems in our projected path. They're treating us less like an enemy, fleet, and more like a natural disaster. The comparison was more accurate than any of them realized. The Alliance ships had evolved beyond simple weapons into something resembling living force of nature. They didn't just fight battles, they transformed. The very concept of what warfare could be. Fleet Admiral, came a transmission from Captain Jin Ho Kwan, who now commanded the exploration vessel Discovery. We've made contact with resistance movements in the hegemony's core territories. They're requesting immediate assistance. What's their situation? Admiral Choi asked. 17 different species have formed a coalition in the Nexus sector. They've been hiding in deep space for decades, but they're willing to reveal themselves if we can provide hybrid technology support. Do it, Admiral Choi ordered. Take whatever resources you need and turn them into another impossible fleet. This had become the pattern of their campaign. Each liberated system provided new allies, new technologies, and new opportunities for human engineers to create combinations that violated everything anyone thought they knew about how machines should work. Engineer Daewon Shin, now holding the title of Chief Impossibility Officer, reported from his mobile laboratory. Admiral, we've had another breakthrough. The quantum monks of Astridian have meditation techniques that, when combined with crystalline energy matrices and human neural interfaces, create weapons that exist in a state of permanent potential. What does that mean in practical terms? Admiral Choi asked. It means we now have cannons that fire every possible shot simultaneously, Daewon explained cheerfully. The target gets hit by the most effective attack pattern without us having to figure out what that pattern should be. That's... Admiral Choi paused, trying to find words. That's completely insane. Yes, ma'am, Daewon agreed. We're very proud of it. As the months passed, the Alliance fleet became less like a military force and more like a traveling revolution. Wherever they went, they left behind populations that had been freed not just from hegemony rule, but from the conventional limitations of what technology could accomplish. We're getting reports from liberated worlds that are starting to worry me, Dr. Kang said during one of their planning sessions. Several species are beginning to worship our ships as manifestations of divine chaos. Is that a problem? Admiral Choi asked. It might be if they start trying to build temples that violate physics, Dr. Kang replied. We've introduced concepts that some cultures are interpreting as proof that reality itself is negotiable. Maybe it is, suggested Chief Gunner So-Ra Kim from the Taeguk. After watching our weapons work for this long, I'm not entirely sure what impossible means anymore. The final confrontation came not through military strategy, but through an act of bureaucratic desperation. The Hegemony Supreme Council, facing the complete collapse of their galactic empire, sent a diplomatic mission to the Alliance fleet with an unprecedented offer. They want to surrender? Admiral Choi asked in disbelief as she reviewed the transmission. Not exactly, replied Diplomatic Coordinator Yoon Hai Lim. They want to negotiate the terms of their own conquest. They're asking us to rule the galaxy because they've concluded that resistance to our chaos is futile. We don't want to rule the galaxy, Admiral Choi said firmly. We just wanted them to stop conquering everyone else. That's what makes this even more interesting, Coordinator Lim continued. They can't comprehend an enemy that doesn't want to dominate them. They're requesting instruction on how to surrender to a force that refuses to accept conquest. The meeting took place in neutral space, aboard a massive space station that had been hastily constructed using hybrid technology principles. The hegemony delegation arrived in traditional warships that looked primitive compared to the Alliance vessels, whose hulls shifted patterns like living kaleidoscopes. High Admiral Zexkor, Supreme Commander of the hegemony forces, stood before the Alliance leadership with an expression of complete bewilderment. We have studied your tactics for months. We have analyzed your technology with our finest minds. We have concluded that you have somehow made impossibility into a weapon. We've made creativity into a weapon, Admiral Choi corrected. Impossibility was just a side effect. The distinction is irrelevant, Zexkor replied. You have defeated an empire that stood for 10,000 years. You have turned our greatest strengths into weaknesses by refusing to acknowledge that they were strengths. You have won a war by changing the rules of warfare itself. So what do you want from us? Admiral Choi asked. We want you to teach us how to be impossible, Zexkor said simply. Our empire is collapsing not because you destroyed it, but because you showed us that there are better ways to think about the universe. Half our population has abandoned their posts to study your hybrid technology. The other half has declared your existence to be proof that logic is overrated. Elder Morden, who had been quietly observing the proceedings, spoke for the first time. You are asking us to transform your entire civilization? We are asking you to save us from ourselves, Zexkor replied. The hegemony was built on the belief that order conquers chaos. You have proven that chaos can create order or destroy it or ignore it entirely. We no longer understand our own universe. Good, said Captain Ryu from his position at the tactical station. Understanding is overrated anyway. The negotiations lasted for weeks, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The Alliance couldn't rule a galactic empire even if they wanted to, and the hegemony couldn't continue ruling after their